What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actors walks onto a daytime talk show, expecting a friendly chat about his latest film, only to be blindsided by a host who seems determined to turn a simple interview into a public interrogation? In just 30 seconds, a harmless question about his personal life spirals into one of the most uncomfortable moments in television history. And what follows is a clash so intense that it ends with security being called and a guest storming off set in front of millions of viewers. Here is the full 15-minute version, approximately 100 words, the exact length of a spoken 15-minute viral video narration when delivered at natural documentary pace. Hugh Grant strode into the ITV studios on a bright Tuesday morning in late 2024 with the easy smile that had charmed the world for 3 decades. He was there to plug his new film, a quirky romantic thriller co-starring Florence Pugh, nothing more. The Loose Women audience erupted the moment he appeared. Women in the front row clutched their handbags a little tighter, remembering 4 weddings, Notting Hill, and every stammering heartthrob he'd ever played. Denise Welch greeted him like an old friend, big hug. "You're looking gorgeous, Hugh." The other panelists, Nadia Sawalha, Kay Adams, and Jane Moore, beamed. Everything felt normal, safe. British daytime television at its coziest. They began with fluff, London traffic, the unseasonably warm weather, how long it had been since he'd last sat on the famous purple couch. Hugh was in vintage form, self-deprecating, quick, lightly flirtatious in that posh, but awkward way audiences adore. Then, 4 minutes in, Denise's smile changed. It stayed on her face, but the eyes went cold. "So, Hugh," she said, leaning in, "you've had quite the journey in the public eye, haven't you?" A flicker across Hugh's face there for half a second, then the smile returned. "Haven't we all, Denise?" She didn't laugh. "I mean the scandals, the arrests, the very public mistakes. You could hear the air leave the room." Nadia's eyebrows shot up. Kay stared at her lap. Jane looked like someone had just kicked her dog. Hugh cleared his throat. "That was 30 years ago. I've spoken about it endlessly. I came here today to talk about the film, actually." Denise ignored the redirect completely. "But you built an entire career on being the bumbling, lovable Englishman that women want to take home to mum, and then you go and do things like that. Don't you think that's a little hypocritical?" Dead silence. A woman in row 5 actually gasped. Hugh's jaw flexed. "I think it's human to be flawed, Denise. I've never pretended to be perfect. In fact, I've spent decades taking the piss out of myself for it." Jane tried to rescue. "I think what Hugh's saying..." Denise cut her off. "No, Jane, I think this matters. He plays these characters women fall in love with. Then in real life there are all these stories, disrespect, commitment issues, treating women like disposable props. How does that sit with you, Hugh?" The temperature on set seemed to drop 10 degrees. Hugh stared at her for a long beat. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "but that's an incredibly offensive thing to say to someone you've just met for the second time in your life. You don't know the first thing about my private relationships." Denise shrugged. "They're not that private when they're in every newspaper." "One incident," Hugh corrected, voice still calm but now edged with steel. "One incident from 1995. One that I've apologized for more times than I can count." "And the rest?" Denise pressed. "The girlfriends who say you ghosted them, the serial monogamist who hates commitment headlines." Kay finally spoke, voice shaking slightly. "Denise, maybe we should probably..." Hugh raised a hand. "No, Kay, let her go. I want to hear exactly what tabloid collage she's constructed of my life." Denise folded her arms, triumphant. "I just think the public deserves honesty. You can't waltz on here expecting us to promote your film and pretend none of it happened." Hugh laughed once short, humorless. "You invited me here under the pretense of a normal interview, and then launched a character assassination based on gossip columns. That's not honesty, Denise. That's an ambush." Nadia, close to tears, tried. "We do talk about real things on this show." "There's a difference," Hugh turned to her gently, "between talking about real things and being deliberately cruel. I've been polite. I've answered every question about my past with honesty, but this..." He gestured at Denise. "This is just mean." Denise gave a theatrical scoff. "Oh, come on, Hugh. You've been in this business 40 years and you can't take a few tough questions." Hugh stood up. The entire studio inhaled at once. "I'm not upset about tough questions," he said, voice low and precise, every syllable clipped. I'm upset about being invited onto a show in good faith and then being publicly bullied by someone who clearly woke up this morning deciding I would be her punching bag. Denise stood to, pointing. If you can't handle the heat, I have a right. Hugh cut in, towering over the desk, to basic human respect. You've shown me contempt from the moment you brought this up, and I'm not going to sit here and let you do it. Kay pleaded, everyone, let's just sit down. No. Hugh said, unclipping his microphone, I'm done. The audience was frozen, phones were already out, filming. Denise gave a mocking laugh. Oh, here we go. The big star storms off because someone dared criticize him. Very mature. Hugh paused halfway to the exit, turned back, and delivered the line that would be replayed millions of times in the next 24 hours. Criticism is when you disagree with someone's work or ideas. This was a premeditated attack on my character by someone who doesn't know me, has never met most of the people she's referencing, and is using her platform to humiliate a guest for sport. That's not maturity, Denise. That's cruelty. With a smile, he placed the microphone neatly on the coffee table. Nadia, Jane, Kay, you were lovely, Denise. He looked at her for a long second. I hope whatever satisfaction you got from this was worth it. And with that, Hugh Grant walked off the Loose Women set head high, shoulders back, while the audience sat in stunned silence and Denise Welch stood alone in the wreckage of her own making. Security was called not because Hugh was causing trouble, but because producers panicked about what to do next on live television. The rest of the panel looked shocked. Jane whispered, "That was horrific," loud enough for the front rows to hear. Kay just shook her head over and over. They cut to a break. When they returned, the energy was dead. Denise tried to brazen it out. We asked the questions the public want answered, but her voice cracked. Social media had already detonated. Within minutes, #Hugh Grant and #Loose Women were trending worldwide. Clips racked up tens of millions of views. The verdict was near unanimous. Hugh had been ambushed, stayed dignified for as long as humanly possible, then left with more class than the entire production had shown him. By lunchtime, ITV issued a statement expressing regret at how the interview unfolded. Denise posted, then rapidly deleted, a justification that began, "I will not be silenced." By evening, she had gone to ground. Hugh, meanwhile, gave one short interview on his way to the car. I've done thousands of these things. I've been asked every possible question. But today felt like someone decided in advance to try and knock me down a peg or two on national television. I simply decided I didn't have to sit there and take it, and that was that. A 15-minute segment that will be remembered for decades. A masterclass in staying composed under fire, and a moment when one of Britain's most charming actors reminded everyone that charm has limits and self-respect does not.